Everything's good to go. And, yeah, looks good, right? I think we have, hard to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we're looking for.
Going blind. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Now it's up.
Now we're good.
Now we know we're good. That was the 30 seconds buffer.
Yeah, the buffer.
Between it.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Nick with EGM.
And I'm Emma, also with EGM.
And we are going to try out the new Rialto map, just like probably every other Overwatch streamer in existence.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Nick it's been a while since I sat down and really played Overwatch, so a lot of the changes are going to be new to me.
So you have tried a little bit of Bridget and Moira.
Yeah, like every time they added in something new, I played a little bit, but just to test it out. And I know that they made a lot of changes because I used to play a lot of Diva and I used to play a lot of Mercy and kind of off tanks and supports. And both Diva and Mercy have been totally reworked since the last time I played seriously. Absolutely. So I don't know if I would even still play them now.
Those are generally your mains, you would say?
Those are the ones I have the most playtime in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because usually I found at the tier I'm in, which is lower than your tier, those were ones that could really help turn a match one way or the other.
What do we got here? Anna. Wow, this is a horrible team comp. Okay. We got...
Oh, wow.
We got an Anna, 3 DPS, and a Symmetra who is currently sort of in a unique void of not having a role.
Yeah, but they're going to rework her, though.
Yeah, that's going to be changed soon. I don't know. Who do you... I'll let you pick who I play.
Oh, gosh. What do you do with this team? I guess you need a tank.
Oh, 10 seconds.
Pick a tank. Do Brigitte. I haven't seen Brigitte.
Oh, that's not a tank, but good choice.
Well, she's like a half tank.
She's a support tank hybrid. Let's see where we're at right now. Okay, so second point. So for anyone that played did you play the Retribution event at all?
No.
Didn't play the cooperative?
I read the comic and I saw some of the stuff on it, but I didn't play it.
So you didn't play the cooperative mode at all?
No, but this map is it was nighttime, right, for this one?
Right. Yeah. So is that a Pharah that just landed? Crash landed over here? Oh. So yeah, this is the cooperative map, except it's daytime 1 and 2 it is in reverse. So I'm not really sure why none of my team is here. So while the cooperative mode operated from back that way, it's now going the opposite direction. Yeah. So you kind of end where it started and start where it ended.
I know they said you have to make some changes too to just physically fit the payload through the map.
Right. Yeah. There's
different walls.
There's a couple layout changes. Like this room obviously wasn't there, and there's a couple this is where it ends in here, and that wasn't even open in the cooperative mode. So
I made a good choice with Brigitte. You can point to stuff with the flail.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we're going this way, and then we're going this way. And now this whole wall wasn't even here. This all the way down. This whole area was open.
I guess it would be way too open if they just had it there.
Though there is some very open. Oh, good job. Good dash there, Tracer. Oop, I missed that. Wow, I'm missing everything right now. Let's get my shield bash back. No! Oh. Tragic.
Let's out of there just
in time. And took that in the face. And the Hanzo changes are another thing. There's quite a few... ooh, man, these people are dying before I can even react.
Yeah, so they're changing up Lucio, I believe, and they changed Hanzo. They got rid of his scatter arrow.
Yep. So, he's got new scatter arrow. No more scatter arrow, new ability. Instead of the scatter arrow, he's got a dash move. Okay, I don't know if I was really the best choice for that thing, but whatever. I'll work with it.
I think that's one of those panic.
Yeah, just do something quick.
I don't know what to do.
We got one.
Be my meat shield.
Come here, Torbjorn. Oh, I'll take an Anna. No, I won't, because this whole team is here and my team is doing nothing. What? So that payload is about to hit the point, and
where is
our team is up there while they're just moving it. That's horrible positioning. One thing I'll say about watching the Overwatch League, it definitely is good for training. If you're trying to get better at Overwatch, it's a good thing to watch. And you learn a lot more of the subtleties of
right. It's when you see the pro players, you can see the combos that they pull off.
Yeah.
And you see oh man, I never knew you could do that specific climb this wall and be in this position.
Right. Yeah. And you learn not only map secrets and character strategies and stuff, but you learn more kind of subtle nuance things like positioning. Positioning is very much a upper echelon skill. Strategy.
It's just kind of awareness. You have to know where everyone is, and you have to keep in mind, like, okay, well, that person died 3 seconds ago, so there's still a spawn.
Right.
You know, and where could everyone be? And then, therefore, where is it safe for you to be? And what space do you have?
And like, who does your team have compared to who does their team have? And, and like overextending and like what distance certain here. If you're a Moira, you can overextend a lot more because you have your phase, which can get you back to safety very quickly. Whereas if you're, I don't know, Roadhog, like, you don't obviously want to be in a position that you can get stranded,
Right.
And so it's like, it's a lot of that kind of technical stuff that you can learn from watching Overwatch League that I've sort of been learning recently with all the exposure to it, and it makes you that much more aware when you're playing, particularly when you're playing competitive, where you just are watching your team and you're just like, wow, I can clearly acknowledge, or I can clearly recognize who screwed up and how, and like that consequently led to like us losing a point. Like that guy at that point overextended when he shouldn't have. That left us one player down, and then we got rolled.
Right.
Like that is the sequence of events where it's just like, before you're just kind of like, it's Overwatch is very chaotic and it can be hard to discern necessarily what's happening at all times. But just like if you play the game enough, you start to recognize these things where you're just like, that was not what you were supposed to do, and you were the reason we lost that position.
And I've seen a lot of people complain about it where they say like, well, I've seen these things that the pros do and I think that I can do them, but the rest of my team can't do them, so what do I do? And people feel like they get stuck, or they feel like, if they just had a good team, then they could be the greatest.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's very much a team game, but like, I mean, each individual person needs to know what they're doing, but you also need to be coordinated because, all the skill in the world won't get you that win if your team isn't doing their jobs. This is just a skirmish right now. So this is the art gallery that, like, when you come in, so you come in like from this way, and you come in here, and enemies drop down from the ceiling in the retribution mode, and then you go through this door, and that leads to like the final area where it's like docks, and you survive for like a couple waves and then get picked up.
Okay. So do you generally like the PvE mode here, or do you play mostly PvP?
I'm not a huge PvE guy when it comes to Overwatch. I think they're cute, and I appreciate that they put it in. It's a nice little change of pace. But I'm kind of an Overwatch purist. Like I don't really do arcade. I don't really care about any arcade modes. I really only do quick play and competitive, because I feel like Overwatch is very much built for a very kind of base type of playing. Whereas something like Call of Duty, I feel supports the flexibility to have goofy modes. I don't feel like Overwatch necessarily does. It can, and there's nothing wrong with doing it, as long as the rest of the game isn't suffering for it. But it's like, it's not really what I. Was that lag? That was weird. It's not really what I come to Overwatch for,
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's generally kind of the opposite of what I play.
Ooh,
like
that is lag.
Like wow.
That was bad.
I did see that. Yeah.
I wonder what our connection situation is right now.
Like, I don't know. We're just in a back room in our office over here. So.
We'll have to...
But the last time I played a lot was around the Uprising event, and then they had Orisa for that one. And they had a Doomfist shortly afterwards. But I really did like the PvE, and I kind of liked that it gives you the chance to bring some really broken comps into that mode, where it gave you the original. You had like Torbjorn, you had Mercy, and all those, but you could just like go in and do the classic like Bastion Reinhardt Mercy combo and just mow down everything. And just a way to blow off steam.
It's definitely fun to mess around
silly,
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Who should I play? We should go.
Who do you have?
Looks like we're going for a team.
You don't have a healer. Dumara.
Don't have a tank either.
Oh man.
So we're going double sniper on attack. Which the kind of issue with Overwatch when it comes to quick and arcade is you fall into this like situation where see those people like
there they go.
you fall into the situation where you're like, on the one hand, you have to acknowledge that this isn't competitive, and people might just be picking characters to mess around with. You know, like that is the purpose of this mode, to like try characters you don't use a lot, blah blah blah.
Right.
And that's fine, but on the other hand, you have these people
three
who
snipers.
Yeah, you have this situation where it's like, you know, your whole team, all five people on a team pick, there's no healers, and the last guy chooses a widow. And you're like, I respect your right to choose that, but it's like you are deliberately choosing something this team doesn't need.
Right, like if you want to play something specific, you should lock it in right at the start. And let people pick around
I totally agree with that. Yeah, so people know what you want to do. It's like, yeah, if you want to mess around, make that clear so other people can you know, respond accordingly. Yeah,
and you get kind of in that trap where sometimes people will check what heroes you've played, and they'll be like, oh well, you know, like this person has put, for example, you know, 20 hours into Mercy and 1 on Lucio, but they're playing Lucio. Are you trying to throw? And, you know, people get mad about that. And you're like, no, I'm here because I'm trying to learn Lucio, or, you know, whatever the situation is. But people get mad because they don't like your pick, or they think that if you pick anything other than what you've been playing, or other than the meta, then they get mad.
Oh, so we have an enemy team throwing. That's fun. Not really sure what that's about.
Just hanging out.
Use this time to explore, I guess. A lot of back routes. It's the kind of thing where I don't know if it's just the fact that I don't know the map. Screw your turrets. I don't know if it's the thing I just don't know the map, or if it's genuinely the case. But like, it seems like there's tons of back routes. You know, like this hallway here leads all the way back over there to spawn, which is interesting.
So you could go totally the other direction and loop around and meet up with the payload again.
This Hanzo. Pull out your special. There's your special arrows.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't have scatter arrow to spam in that little corner.
That is so. I'm that kind of person that like every change, you know, every buff to a character, I'm like, oh, they seem super overpowered, like the game's broken. I'm definitely. Are we not even moving the? Am I an idiot? Where's the payload? Oh, there it is.
Wow.
It just went right by me. I was like, where did it go?
It's just really
how do you lose that thing?
There.
I'm one of those people that's like first to cry overpowered whenever a character is buffed. But one thing I'll say about Hanzo, I think his rapid fire arrow is really good, but there is something very relaxing now about being able to like turn a corner, see a Hanzo, and be like, okay, he can't insta kill me. Right. Unless granted he gets like, unless I'm a 200 or less health character and he gets a perfect headshot, which is, you know, it's possible, but it's significantly less likely than scatter arrow insta kills.
I think it was just the low skill
that
it needed that made people mad. Like you could just kind of fire blindly with it, and you would get
have a chance anywhere near their feet. All right, we were in some serious lag. That's a problem. Yeah, if you got anywhere near their feet, it was like a guaranteed kill. And there's a lot of luck of the draw, you know, because it was like sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't, just based on where it randomly scattered to.
Yeah, and people felt like their death was unfair, and they're like, well, he didn't earn that kill, you know, he just kind of fired at the corner and it hit me.
So I think overall, I do think it's a good change for the character.
What do you think about the upcoming Symmetra changes? Because that's going to be wildly different.
So funny thing is, like, not so much in competitive anymore, but I used to be like borderline a Symmetra main.
I remember that. I remember some of our earlier streams.
That might cause people to think I'm a scumbag, but it's like I used her a lot and used her relatively effectively. You know, I wasn't like throwing with her.
Yeah, I like playing her too.
No, yeah, she's not used. You know, I don't think she was ever a useless character as much as people thought. Playing in the higher tiers of competitive now, like I do admittedly not really use her anymore, just because it's like especially since like playing more or watching more Overwatch League and learning strategies and stuff, like her kind of absence from any conceivable meta is notable, you know. It's like it does cause a problem.
They did mention something about that, and I believe in one of the developer notes where there was like the pick rate for all the heroes, and all of them had been picked at some point except Symmetra.
Yeah, she was the only character not picked. So it's like I've liked her, and I think she was fun to use, but ultimately having a useless hero like that, I think it's just better to acknowledge that like, hey, things should be done.
I feel like she's a hero that's very good at lower skill levels, because like when you have enemy teams that don't know what they're doing and will walk into her traps, or or they don't expect a teleporter, they don't know to hunt down the teleporter.
Right, yeah, don't seek out the teleporter.
Right, or they're not good enough to hide from her beam for long enough. You know, if you yourself are a lower skilled player, you get that auto shot, you know, that auto lock on people, whereas your opponent, even if you're right in their face, they might not be good enough to fire back. But at higher levels of play, like in competitive, in Overwatch League, I think the participants are just good enough that they don't really fall for those strategies. Oh, yeah. They can just deal with the turrets.
Yeah, you get a Winston for the turret, you get a Tracer or a Sombra for the teleporter / shield generator. Oh, that's that new highlight intro.
Oh, that was cool looking.
Yeah, so you get like a Winston for
Hey!
Oh, this is what they're doing. Okay, they're just trolling. Wait,
yeah.
How did he play the game?
What is going on?
I am so confused right now.
What was that?
I have no idea what that was. That had to have been a glitch, right?
Oh, I'm glad we got that on camera.
Yeah, that was amazing. What the hell? It's presumably the play of the game glitched and thought that those Omnics were players, maybe?
And then thought he killed like 4 people in a row, and it was just...
That was, and I knew you could go on the boats. I didn't know you could take them, like, away from the zone. Like, I thought they would eventually, like, drop you off or kill you or something. But,
I want to go back and look through that again. Oh, I'm no way.
Come on.
I am not good. I'm going to embarrass EGM. I play on PC, for the record. I am not good at console shooters. I admit this. I grew up with a computer and with, like, a Nintendo DS. So I do not have, like, the long skill set of shooters with a controller.
Double sniper right off the bat.
Actually, what I do really like, which this is only tangentially related to Overwatch, but I do like controller controls with motion, like Nintendo has started doing. So games like Splatoon, I'm actually much, much better at that. That feels intuitive to me. And I don't know if it's because it's the like mouse and keyboard, I'm used to moving my hand around to aim. But doing like the sticks to get in the general area and then doing the last little bit of precision by tilting it feels very natural to me, and just straight doing it with the sticks.
Should I pick Torbjorn?
Go for Torbjorn.
Go for Torbjorn.
See how they adjust to this.
Let's see what this last guy picks. I hope he picks not a tank and not a healer.
Let's see.
I always have while it's a horrible thing for people to do, I do respect people that are just like, yo, screw everyone else. Like, you know, he ruined it. Damn. Oh, I think the Hanzo might be. Oh no, he just leaves. And that's another thing, and that's something I always rant to my friends about. Is that okay? If you're in quick or arcade mode, and you have a team like this where like no one's picking anything useful, like everyone's just being a jerk off, like that's fine. You know, it's like this mode is for screwing around, and if that's what you want to do, I mean, it sucks that you're gonna screw your team over, but I respect it. What I don't get is that people like that Hanzo, who I think that might actually be the same guy who just returned because that name looks familiar, is like people like that who they pick a character that isn't helpful and then they throw or leave as if they were trying, like as if they were tryharding, like they pick this character that is objectively not good in like whatever scenario you're in, and then they get all salty because it's not working. It's like, what were you expecting? Like, if you want to pick a stupid character because that's what you want to use, you are well within your right to do so. You can't get mad because it's not working. You know, like it's no secret that it wasn't gonna work. Like it's just there's a inordinate amount of very, very stupid people that play Overwatch. Like I played a lot of Call of Duty in my day, and people would probably disagree with me on this. I would hazard to say that the the player base of Overwatch is more stupid and toxic than Call of Duty.
Really?
Like just in my experience, and admittedly I haven't played as much Call of Duty recently as I used to. So it might just be an exposure thing. But oh my god, this lag is unbearable. I don't know how long this stream will last. This isn't even playable. But yeah, like, And I think one reason for that is that this is such a more team-oriented game. It's a lot easier to
blame your teammates.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to screw your teammates over and blame your teammates and and stuff like that. Because like sort of one of my kind of philosophies when it comes to Overwatch is like you can't, and obviously like people disagree with this, particularly developers, but like in my opinion, you can't really have fun playing Overwatch to a certain extent if you're losing, because everything that makes the game fun is, the team coordination and all of that. It only really, for the most part, obviously there are going to be scenarios where this isn't the case, but for the most part, that's only really ever happening if you're winning, right? Because you're winning because you're doing what is fun about the game. Whereas something like Battlefield or Call of Duty, which are other shooters that I've played a lot about, you can, if your team is just garbage, you can go off and kind of do your own thing and do really well. Generally, you can do really well on your own and still have fun with the match, even though overall your team is losing. Whereas, like, if your team is losing in Overwatch, it's because everything is just going wrong.
Right, everybody scatters.
Right, everyone's scattered. You're like,
you
can't. Wow, that lag almost sent me into the water. You can't get out of spawn, or you can't even get to the point, like whatever else. So yeah, it's like, that's always been the kind of one of my irks with Overwatch, just at its core. If your team is bad, you're not really going to be having fun playing it.
I wonder if some of the toxicity too is due just because of like the time that this is out, that there's a lot more streaming and a lot more people following the pros and following Overwatch League than like back when you would have played the earlier Call of Duties. Like, do you think people like look at the pros and they're like, oh well, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, I think I could be pro, and they're really not that good. Or
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Overwatch has a massive following, and I think while like the pro scene's extremely popular, I think it's a pretty small percentage of players that actually follow it. Not good toward Instagram, man. I mean, I don't know if it was a lag or just not hitting the shots.
That's like a brutal just arrow in your head.
Well, yeah, it seemed like I was hitting him with it seems like I was hitting him for a lot of damage, but he was only down 75 points. That seemed really strange. But what I was saying is, I think the percentage of the entire Overwatch community that actually follow the pro scene is relatively very small. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't imagine that is a huge factor. I think it's a highly I think it's an inherently competitive game that is extremely. My team's probably hating my guts right now because I'm like just walking around shooting barriers and stuff. It's a extremely inherently competitive game that is extremely reliant on team coordination. So it's like Call of Duty, one person can often, if they're good enough, carry a team to victory, like in team deathmatch or something, if they just get enough kills. It's rare to the point of arguably being impossible for one player to carry a team in Overwatch that isn't doing anything, right?
Right.
Like, it's just the math isn't there,
And it's just the nature of, if you're playing with your friends and you have a coordinated team and you can get better, that's one thing, but when you're playing with random different people every time, it's extremely hard to improve or have any kind of teamwork.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, that's someone like, I don't play a lot of shooters, but I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft lately. And I'm in a guild that's pushing the current raid content, which needs, it's flexible now, but you need like 20 to 30 people.
Right.
And so if we need like, we need an extra healer, and sometimes we have to find just a random one, and it's just a total shot in the dark what you're going to get.
Right, yeah.
It might be someone good, might be someone bad, but that's what holds you back is like the group as a whole learns, but it's that random person, it's that random element where it's like they haven't been practicing, they don't know how we do it. And it's just the same thing here. Where like all of your teammates are random. So what do you even do? You can't do it on your own. It's not just that one, 10% of the team overall is random. It's the 5-6 of the team is random.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that ends up developing like a very. It has the potential to make you just very cynical about the experience, because it's like I know, like I have a immediate hatred of basically everyone who plays this game. Like, I'm sort of that, like, I'm in that mindset now. And I'm not like I'm far from pro status. You know, I'm like high diamond, low master around there, for competitive. But it's like even at that point, I'm like at the stage in my experience with this game where everyone's a scumbag unless proven otherwise. You know, it's sort of the opposite of innocent until proven guilty for me.
Right.
You know, because it's just like it's just like everyone. You know, it just seems like everyone's so much in it for themselves, despite being such a team oriented game.
And people get so salty about it. So when I played, I was in a different rank. Like, I never did a lot of competitive, so that was never my focus. But when I did, I was in, like, silver, like, pushing gold a little bit, like, mid-silver most of the time. And people would get so mad, and they'd be like, why aren't we pros? And like, oh, you know, y'all suck. And I'm like, dude, you're in silver. You are not good. None of us are good. You are not special.
You're never getting up to where you want to be accepted.
Like, I'm sorry, but no.
That reminds me of, you remember that Hanjo guy that was like that made the news a while back? He was that Overwatch player who was intentionally throwing to get all the way down to like bronze, and he wrote like that big. He was just like a independent streamer, but he wrote like this really extensive feature on like what it's like playing at the lowest tier as like a good player. I saw that,
or I saw someone who did something similar.
Yeah, I wrote a news story on it. It was interesting because he was talking about how it's like, you get down to bronze, and you have essentially two types of people. You have people who just could care less and are just doing whatever the hell they want, which is at that rank is exactly what you should be doing. And then you have people who genuinely think that like that, you know, it's like everyone else's fault and like they should be like, you know, higher, and like, and they get like super mad and toxic and like and all this stuff, and it's so interesting to see it, to realize that it, you know,
there are people who genuinely think they're only held back because their teams suck, and they've never realized that maybe I am the problem,
right?
You know?
Yeah, or even like tried to learn, you know, or tried to like, you know, make the effort to like, you know, increase their skill, right?
Right.
It's totally something
the other
do,
bronze players,
know?
And they say, why don't we have a team comp? You know, and meanwhile, someone on the team is 6 years old, and you know, two people, it's their first time picking up the game, and other people just don't care. You know.
And there are those kind of people who like sit on Symmetron attack or something. You know, that's an extreme example, but you know, something like that, and then are like, oh, why aren't we winning? You gotta suck. It's like, you know, it's that, and that's something. That's a form of misunderstanding of how this game works that you see in every tier, you know, to some extent, where it's, you have these people who, you know, I had competitive games last night where I was choosing heroes that were provably effective, but people on my team were complaining about it, and then we won because, you know, I was what I was supposed to be. But it's like, while they were complaining, it's like, it just shows that like they don't get, you know, there's such a like kind of micro level of strategy to this game that people just have trouble wrapping their heads around, you know. It's like it's you know.
And I think there's a difference too between, like, you know, you and I, like, I think we go on the Overwatch subreddit and stuff, and we read about, you know, strategies, and we hear things. So we'd hear like memes about like, oh, you know, don't be an attack Torbjorn, and like, and we know that that's
or don't be
a
Torbjorn, period.
But there's plenty of people out there, I think, who just don't engage with the community outside of the game at all, and so they're like, well, why can't I be an attack Torbjorn? Like, like maybe this is helpful in this situation, and they genuinely don't know because they only engage with the game in the game.
Yeah.
And they don't actually look at the wider communities, or they don't, you know, look and try and figure out, like, maybe this is a bad idea, because all they see is their matches.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to my thing about, it's like, in non-competitive modes, like, you're, you know, as long as you're not a salty idiot about it, you're allowed to be whatever you want. Like, if you're going to pick something that's provably ineffective, then that's your right, as long as you don't expect it to be useful. But and I very often kind of follow a similar mindset where it's like, if I'm playing quick, I'll use characters that aren't useless. I don't use like troll characters that are just completely useless in a particular scenario, but I'll use characters I'm not super familiar with. And I also have sort of a strategy I don't know if strategy is the right word, but where I refuse to switch in competitive, or not competitive, in quick play or arcade. And while that sounds like a very kind of trolly thing, like it very much goes against what Overwatch is about, I sort of do it one, to assuage my frustration when we lose, because if I keep switching and we still lose, that'll just make me frustrated, that like no matter what I do, I can't make my team do their jobs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, like, I use it as a practicing tool. So it's like, oh, okay, like I picked this character, they just happen to have 3, I pick a Pharah, for example, and they happen to have 3 Pharah counters, just luck of the draw, and any reasonable person, at least in competitive, would switch off Pharah. But in like when I'm playing non-competitive modes, I try to stick on her and be like, okay, here, let me practice actually trying to manage this, because like if you can,
you learn to dodge, learn what can I do to survive.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you can learn to deal with those situations, then you're just, you're evolving your skill with that character, even though you wouldn't normally use them in that scenario. But
so do you have a new main nowadays, or do you swap between a couple?
I've been using a lot of different characters lately. I didn't ever use Tracer when the game first came out, because she was without question the most overpowered character, and I still think she is definitely the most overpowered character. But one thing Blizzard has done a good job with is they haven't nerfed her until literally this patch. To the extent of my knowledge, the slight nerf to her pulse bomb that's in this patch is the first character readjustment to this character since it launched.
It's actually interesting just how little they've adjusted her compared to everyone else.
Like that is the very first one, unless I'm not thinking of something. And also, unless I'm not thinking of something, she is literally the only character in the entire game that has gone this amount of time without being adjusted. So like I've always thought she was way overpowered, and it's sort of like a personal policy of mine in all video games not to use overpowered things. So I never really touched her. And while she never really got the nerf she needed, Blizzard did a good job of implementing new characters that counter her really well, specifically Moira and Brigitte.
Like the anti-flankers.
Yeah. So I think they did a good job with that. And since she's a little more manageable, I now feel more comfortable using her. Hey, attack Torbjorn.
I wonder if it's something of the poster girl symptom, Symmetra's gotten a total rework and she's about to get another.
Right.
If they totally rework Tracer, Tracer's been in many shorts showing off her abilities, and Tracer's on the cover. I wonder if they feel like she's kind of untouchable because she is the poster girl.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think she needs a rework. I think fundamentally she works. I think it's a numbers issue. But as far as that goes, like the poster girl thing, like I had another friend who made a similar point, and I don't think Blizzard would ever sacrifice game balance for that reason. Particularly not particularly, but exemplified by the fact that Hanzo has a massive rework, and in his short, he uses Scatter Arrow.
That's true.
And he now doesn't have Scatter Arrow, so I doubt very highly Blizzard would ever let that affect any decisions.
I wonder if they're keeping her as a kind of touchstone, like to balance around. Instead of just changing all the characters all the time, they're like, we're going to keep this one as she was.
That's an interesting idea. I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
Because most of the other characters have gotten fairly significant changes.
Yeah. I remember, and I don't know if I've ever seen this necessarily manifest as anything consequential, but I remember, I have to be really careful with their dashes because of this lag. I feel like it'll dash me right into the water.
Gonna go off the cliff like that one earlier.
But they've said before that they always prefer to oh man, she was like waiting for me to dash. Blizzard always prefers to I've started the sentence like 12 times because I keep getting distracted. Okay, Blizzard always prefers to buff people instead of nerf them. Like they'll try to avoid. I mean, actually, now that I say that, it might be the other way around. But they've said they like to do one over the other. But it seems like generally the spread of nerfs and buffs has been fairly equal, you know?
Yeah, there's been a lot of characters that I think get both. Like, it'd be like, okay, you know, your damage is increased, but, you know, the number of shots you can fire is down slightly. Like, it's usually balanced in some way. Yeah, I think people don't like it when, like, their mains get a nerf because that just feels bad.
No,
know?
totally.
It's like, oh, yeah, I was playing this character and I was really good and it felt great and now I'm weaker. You know?
Yeah, no, this lag is brutal.
Yeah, it's a tough character to play with lag.
Yeah, it is. Woo, hello. But, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm always down for the game to be, you know, as balanced as possible, even if it's characters that, ooh, good shot. Oh, wait, that was an automatic thing. Never mind, not good shot. You know, and I will say, like, it's not perfectly balanced, and I don't think Blizzard necessarily intends it to ever be, but as far as other games like this go, and considering the amount of characters they have, this is one of the most balanced games I've ever played. Like, this is an exceptionally balanced game.
They put a lot of work into keep tweaking it and keep changing it and keep doing these minuscule changes, and they really do update it fairly frequently with that.
Yeah, and I think there's very few heroes that are useless, you know? And
well, that's the whole Symmetra rework. They're like, okay, there's one who's not played. Out of the entire roster, there's one. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good, yeah.
And it, for the most part, with the arguable exception of Tracer, I would say there are definitely some upper tier characters. Like, you know, I think Bridget, who I'm like borderline a Bridget main, and I'm perfectly comfortable acknowledging that she's probably a little more powerful than she should be. So Bridget, I'm trying to focus on, I can't think of the hero roster at the moment. But, you know, there's like one or two characters that are probably a little better than they should be. Like Bridget, Tracer, maybe a couple others. But for the most part, almost every hero is on a similar level, and it's more heroes that are lower than they should be than higher, which I think is preferable, right? Because it's better if you're gonna have like just a couple heroes unbalanced. It's better to have the vast majority of a roster be around the same level with just a couple that aren't played, as opposed to some that are really good and are the only ones that are played out of a massive roster, right?
Right. Well, that was the old Mercy problem with her Resurrect. All the
right. Yeah, she was very much like the quintessential healer, right?
And that was back when I played a lot with that was why I had to play Mercy so often. It's like, all right, no one's picking Mercy. This is what we got to do. So I ended up with a lot more hours on her than I intended.
Yeah, and I think she's a good example too of my point in that. So she was safe to say she was too good and better than she should be, and they nerfed her. And a lot of people are saying that, like, oh, they nerfed her kind of to oblivion. Maybe not oblivion, but like to a point that she's like drastically less effective than they should be. And she's still used, but she's not nearly used as often as she was. And ultimately, it seems like the game is in a healthier place, right? Like, maybe she could get a buff. You see
other healers now.
Yeah, you see a lot of other healers, and like maybe the argument could be made that she should get buffed a little bit right now. But it's better that we're in a scenario where it's like, you know, she's used occasionally, but not to an unhealthy extent, right?
Right.
Wow, man,
I think that's a good thing because, you know, the less that she's used, that means that it's more time for other healers.
Right.
And the other healers were vastly underused.
Yeah.
Before
And that's what I'm saying about how it's like when you have the majority of the roster balanced with a small segment of it underbalanced, that results in the wider variety of heroes being played as opposed to the alternative. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we never talked about what the Symmetra changes actually are, which
seems
really crazy. It's like she now has the teleport as just one of her E abilities, just her standard abilities. I call it E because I play on PC. And she can shoot her turrets as projectiles through her teleporters, which seems absolutely nuts. And she no longer has her lock-on beam. Like, she has some kind of fire instead. Right,
yeah. Yeah, it's, from the descriptions, it sounds like a kind of a variation of Zarya's Zarya's primary fire, so it's just a straight beam, except Symmetra's will be significantly more thick. Woo, that's a wall there.
Kind of like a really buff lightsaber kind of thing is what I'm
picturing. Yeah, just like a big straightforward beam. And
then her ultimate was interesting because we couldn't really picture it from the description.
Yeah,
but
so
it's like her shield wall, but they said it's infinite in size, and so I guess it's just like a giant.
Yeah, it's just a giant barrier that just
goes across the whole map.
Yeah, it just cuts across the whole map. Which that seems extremely strange to me. I'm not really sure. Man, they have this place locked down. What? Oh my God, this lag. Good Lord. Earlier like 30 seconds ago or so, I had the lag literally recall me from my blink. I blinked forward and then it just recalled me right back to where I was.
Man.
Yeah. It's like, holy crap. This might have to be our last one if this lag keeps up. Because this is brutal.
Yeah, well, we've gone for about 40 minutes, so we've done some pretty good time here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, do you think the portals are going to change gameplay a lot? Because I could see that...
the what?
Symmetra's portals. Because that could have some potential, like, she throws one down behind enemy lines. And
the teleporters.
So much more mobility for the entire team.
Yeah, and they were talking about how it could be... it could involve, like, teleporting, like, Junkrat tires and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like in like Diva Bombs, you could, like, send a Diva Bomb through. Yeah, it sounds like completely different than what they were, their original kind of intention for that ability. Ooh, that was bad aim. I don't know. It'll be interesting to.
That seems something that could really change up.
Oh, see, it just did it again.
Strategies, right? Like if you have suddenly this teleporter that you can put anywhere, anytime.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely gives her like an entirely kind of different purpose.
And the other one spawns in front of her instead of back at spawn, so it's no longer just used from spawn to wherever. It's used from point A to point B.
Right.
Which is anywhere Symmetra is.
Right.
And then
yeah.
within, I think they said 25 yards.
25 meters, whatever the transfer rate for that is.
Yeah.
So it'll be weird to be like, because I guess if you're using it on attack, well, I guess if the enemy knows you're on the team, it will be probably a bit of a challenge to position yourself in a way where you're not telegraphing the fact that you're placing it, But one question I had about that was, I wonder, so when... Speaking of Symmetra, when Symmetra's what do you call it, shield generator released, that completely undermined her trophy, her trophy / achievement.
That's true.
Because she has now, and that is the only trophy that's keeping me from platinuming Overwatch, so I'm particularly pissed about it, or I was particularly pissed about it, because no one any longer put 3 teleporters on a map. It basically made that non-existent. Mm-hmm. And the trophy is, for those that don't know, it's the one that gives you the sorry spray, and it's kill 3 teleporters in one match. So it became virtually physically impossible after the shield generator came up, and I'm wondering if now that she's going to be planting them all over the place,
it might just be a really easy
might actually be a really easy one, and I'll finally be able to plant them.
That would be awesome if it did.
That would be awesome. But that was a very laggy version of Rialto.
Still gotta look at the map,
Yeah, I totally got wrecked because I was not paying attention to anything. But so it's kind of interesting. I'm not a huge escort guy, but I think as far as escorts map go, it's fairly unique.
It seems fairly small. Like the length of it is not that long of a route.
Yeah. The total distance, it does seem maybe a little bit smaller, but with possibly some longer sight lines than most escort maps. Like there's some really big, like the courtyard. Like so, starting at the bridge right when it starts, that's like one really long sight line. Then the courtyard area next, which is just like a huge area. Then the second bridge, which you can see again, both just across bridge. So it seems like a lot of really, and then it gets a little close quarters towards the end. But it seems like a lot of really long range engagements. But yeah, I mean it's
lots of alternate routes, lots of places.
Yeah, a lot of back alleys. But so it seems like a pretty cool map. Maybe
gotta figure out what's up with that glitch with shooting the target dummies off the boats that we had earlier.
Yes, we should probably do a little research on that and figure out what that was about and get back to you guys on our discoveries.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm Nick, that's Emma, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, see you guys later.